Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke, so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box News Bites. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. Okay, so I got something wrong recently. I'll own it. All over Twitter, I saw people tweeting how hot they were, and it took me an absurdly long time to realize they weren't being narcissistic. There have been stories about extreme weather over the past couple weeks, and I wish I could say this was shocking. But these stories aren't new. They're just the latest in an alarming pattern which is leaving no place on Earth untouched by climate change. These extreme events don't affect everyone equally. People with wealth and without disabilities have a better chance of surviving and recovering. And where you live in the world, in this country, will contribute to how well you'll be able to weather this storm. Living in a location at lower risk of extremes is a privilege. Please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel and follow me on Twitter, where I'll tell you how hot I am. No, not really my style. Something about me. It's my channel after all. I'm fascinated by physical geography, so that's meteorology, seismology, volcanology, basically anything natural disaster related. Learning about it is a hobby of mine and has been since I was a child. The power and unpredictability of Mother Nature terrified me, so I wanted to understand it, and when I did, I developed a deep admiration and fascination of what this planet is capable of. My favorite kind of movie is what I call natural disaster slasher flicks. The Day After Tomorrow, 2012, Deep Impact, San Andreas, even Geostorm. They're ludicrously unrealistic, and I love watching destruction on a mass scale. But that's because no one was getting hurt in real life. It's not real, or at least it didn't used to be. I filmed this from my window not too long ago. These downpours would abruptly start and stop for most of the day. I had to drive in that, and at times the rain was so intense I could barely see 3 cars forward and the roads were flooded. Giant puddles put everyone at risk of hydroplaning or the splash blinding the car next to them. I was fortunate I was never outside when one of these downpours hit, and watching it from my window was thrilling. But my heart broke seeing the wind, hearing the hail, the flashes of lightning. All I could think of was how unhoused people forced to live in tents or makeshift shelters were suffering in this. What if their tent was in a shallow spot? It would have been flooded. People sheltering in underground areas would be at risk from flash floods, even if they were far away from the downpour. The force of the rain, the wind, the hail would damage or destroy their shelters, not to mention how terrifying it must be sitting in them not knowing how bad it was going to get. Any lightning strikes near them could be fatal. When we are told to seek shelter from a storm, what do you do when you don't have any and you aren't welcome in others? Living like this is not a choice. And yet, every time the media reports on an encampment being violently destroyed by police from command of the city-state, you will hear statements from the mayors, like Toronto's John Tory, who definitely is not a vampire as proven by the zero reaction to the silver spoon in his ass, saying that everyone was offered a place to go. How bad was that offer for people to rather stay outside exposed to conditions like this storm? Shelters are either full or have environments so harmful to some people that they take their chances with the elements. People go to places that have some risk to their life when other places have a much higher risk. It's a lower risk analysis people living with poverty have to make on the daily. The safer, more compassionate, overall cheaper way to help people who are unhoused is to provide them with housing that suits their needs. The other story I watched with horror was the heat dome over the west coast. The village of Lytton, BC broke Canada's heat record 3 days in a row, topping 49.6 degrees Celsius on June 29th. In Fahrenheit, that equals hot. Seriously, that's halfway to the boiling point. During this time, I was incredibly grateful to be far away from that. While it was hot in Ontario, it was manageable. I'm a winter child. I love the snow. I love the cold. I'm one of the few who's more energetic during the winter, and watching the snowfall brings me a sense of peace. In the summer, I suffer in the heat. At times, I can't move, I can't sleep, I can't function, and I feel sick. Also, I've never been able to afford an apartment that hasn't gotten gross hot. In one place I lived, I went to make a peanut butter sandwich and got the jar out of the cupboard and was able to pour it on my bread. Winters used to be long and cold enough that I would hit a point of saturation and I felt ready to go through the summer. But there hasn't been a winter in years that has got me to that point, and the summers are much worse. One summer in my area, there were 30 days over 30 degrees. I don't know if I could have survived what happened in BC without assistance, and many didn't. Over 700 sudden deaths were reported in BC during the heat wave, which is triple the number of what would be considered normal. The high temperatures are thought to be a significant contributing factor. I'll be so bold to say, yeah, it was. Botherboy quote tweeted this: "Christ, what an asshole." The video in the quoted tweet is John Horgan, the Conservative Premier, the NDP Premier of BC, responding to the situation. Let's take a look.
Well, again, I'll await the coroner's determination. As Dr. Henry said, fatalities are part of life, and the consequences or the causes of those fatalities are examined by officials that we put in place as a society to make sure we're getting the best information possible so that we can put in place programs and policies to protect people going forward. And again, this was an unprecedented heat wave, records broken day after day. The public was acutely aware that we had a heat problem, and we were doing our best to break through all of the other noise to encourage people to take steps to protect themselves. But it was apparent to anyone who walked outdoors that we were in an unprecedented heat wave. And again, there's a level of personal responsibility. I'm not ducking the issue at all, Lisa. This is a tragedy upon a host of others that we've had to address over the number of months. But I believe we did what we could to get information out, and we rely also on the public press and media outlets who've done a really good job, in my mind, of making the case. Weather forecasters on all of the networks on radio were making the case, telling people to be wary, and we have our presence, our internet presence and social media doing that as well.
Wow, that was horrible. Fatalities are a part of life? Are you kidding me? Each and every single one of these deaths was preventable. All the people needed was water and a cool place to sit. Not a single person had to die from the heat. It was apparent to anyone who walked outdoors. Well, that's some privileged BS. Some people were already outdoors because they're unhoused. A lot of people live in places with no AC and suffer and die in their homes from the heat. Some people don't have safe options available to them, which is his responsibility as leader of the province to provide. Speaking of which, personal responsibility, followed by, I'm not ducking the issue. These are conservative talking points. People can take all the responsibility they want, but if they don't have access to the tools to help them out of the situations they're in, they're limited in what they can do to help themselves and suffer because of it. He is ducking the issue. And he also says they tried to get the message out there with TV media and social media. Breaking news, not everyone can afford internet access, and many unhoused people don't even have a phone. You have to do outreach. You have to have people on the streets checking in on the unhoused. You have to have programs to connect with vulnerable people, both housed and unhoused. These are programs that should have been set up a long time ago, so when emergencies do happen, there's a safety net for everyone. With the current climate crisis, access to air conditioners should be a right because people's lives will depend on it. If politicians don't like that, they should have done something a long time ago to stop climate change. They need to take personal responsibility for what they allowed to happen. After seeing this video, I replied to Botherboy. He's been bought from the sounds of it. Effing shame. It makes all NDP look bad when stuff like this happens. Then a Twitter friend of mine, Mark Joycey, replied with this. What left party needs a tier that's $1,200 a year to access? Huh. Curious. What's this? Oh, look, it's the BC NDP donation page. Makes sense. They're a political party. They all have donation pages. Join the Leader Circle? The Leader Circle brings together New Democrats from a diverse background across British Columbia to connect and share ideas and grow our progressive movement for the future. A membership in the Leader Circle is just $1,200 a year? If you can afford $1,200 a year to donate to the party, chances are you're part of the 1%, and that 1% isn't so diverse. Let's see. Oh, your $1,200 annual Leaders Circle membership includes. Oh, so this gives you stuff, unlike most people who donate because they want to support the party they feel has the best policies. No, this actually gives you some benefits. Let's see. Admission to 2 yearly events with BC NDP leader John Horgan. Oh, here he is right there. That's John Horgan. So you get exclusive access to him. Great. $50 a ticket to select events throughout the year. Yeah, of course they would still charge you more, but if you can afford the $1,200, chances are you can afford $50 a ticket as well. Again, part of that whole 1% diverse crowd. A chance to attend an annual conference call or webinar with BC NDP leader John Horgan. Would you look at that? More exclusive access. The opportunity to forge strong connections with diverse British Columbians who share your commitment to progressive and social democracy. You know what? There's lots of not-for-profit organizations that give you all of that for real. Like in real life, you can do all of that. A subscription to a quarterly newsletter with special updates on BC NDP goals and campaigns. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's free, but, toss it in as an extra add-on. Because, yeah, why not? Ooh, a BC NDP Leaders Circle pin. A pin, not a pen. A pen might actually be useful. What are you going to do with a pin? Yeah, reading over all of that, he's definitely been bought. But before I got too mad, I wanted to do my due diligence and check to see if there was the same option for Ontario's NDP or the federal NDP. While they have the option to donate high amounts, I didn't find any Leaders Circle. The high donations are treated the same as the lower ones. When I searched even further, I found this. Oh, would you look at this? It's the federal Conservatives that also have a Leaders Circle for just the low price of $1,200 a year. Huh, I wonder where John got his idea. Yeah, I'm mad. What a sellout, fake NDP, selfish, privileged, entitled prick. Wake up! This guy isn't progressive. He's not even on the left. Hey, Jagmeet Singh, Andrea Horwath, you need to call John Horgan out. He makes all NDPers look bad. Millions of people will suffer and thousands will die without the policies you are promising. When you don't call him out, you are passively endorsing him. If you let him get away with his many actions that go against what the NDP is supposed to stand for, you are sending off a beacon saying you can't be trusted to follow through with what you promised as well. The NDP already faces an uphill battle with biased media and unequaled standards. It's not fair, but it's what you have to work with. John is making it harder for every other NDPer to get elected. The NDP needs to stand for something more than just being better than the worst. Hey, BC, NDP, MLAs, why so quiet? If your leader is walking you off the edge of a cliff, it's your duty to say something. None of your jobs are more important than the lives of the people you are supposed to represent. Over 700 dead. All of those deaths could have been prevented. Is that really worth your paycheck, your soul? What exactly does he have to do for any of you to call him out? All of you, get principled and denounce him. And right when things seemed like they couldn't get worse for Lytton, the day after the record-breaking heat on June 30th, this happened.
Oh my God, and the jade's gone. The store. The store.
Around Around 1,000 people had 15 minutes to evacuate. 90% of the village was destroyed. Not everyone made it out. The smoke cloud from this caused over 710,000 lightning strikes in 15 hours. Recent articles I've seen suggest the start of the fire had something to do with a train going through the community. This is exactly what the plot of a natural disaster slasher flick is all about. You know, when I put surviving the apocalypse in my bucket list, it was supposed to be a joke. I'm glad the people in the car made it out, but what if they didn't have that car? What if they couldn't afford one or a disability made it so they couldn't drive? I'm reminded of heartbreaking footage I saw of the Japan tsunami from 2011. In a field, you could see people fleeing, and even with the wave approaching, knowing it was certain death, they couldn't run. In fires like these, the people who die are the ones who can't afford a vehicle or are unable to flee due to disability or age. Imagine not being able to see while trying to flee, not being able to hear the warnings, being restricted as to what surface you can use to escape on due to being in a wheelchair. Being able to run for your life is a privilege. If you're in a high-risk area of flood or fire, make your escape plan now and include those around you who don't have the ability to flee on their own. With all the chaos natural disasters cause, it's a good thing we have the government to help us out. From CBC News, from the Canadian Press, abysmal attempt, BC wildfire response criticized by Indigenous leader. An Indigenous leader accused British Columbia's government Saturday of ignoring the needs of community members in Lytton while wildfire leveled their village earlier this week. Let's see, Chief Matt Pascoe said the tribal council was forced to try to save lives with little to no help from the government. Pascoe, who operates a ranch near Ashcroft, BC, north of Lytton, said the first contact he received from the government came 12 hours after evacuations began. They had 15 minutes to get out of there, and it took the government 12 hours. And it was regarding his cattle, not about the affected community members? Well, of course, cattle means profit. It was an abysmal attempt at the very thing they're meant to do, he said in an interview Saturday. They had processes in place for our cattle, but not for the people. Pascal says the government's shortfalls can be traced to the province's treatment of Indigenous peoples and lack of recognition of their jurisdiction when it comes to land management and stewardship. Wow, that is horrible. BC's Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth admitted his government's wildfire response was crap and said there were challenging factors, which translates to me as he couldn't be bothered to look up their phone number. Early communications with the communities weren't what they could have been. He said, I have made my expectations clear to the ministry, and I have been assured immediate steps have been taken to address gaps in protocols that contributed to the situation. A little late on that one. Wait a sec. What government is this? Oh, the John Horgan BC government. I'm going to backtrack just a little. Remember this page? Huh. Notice something? I did. My obsessive compulsive gets the best of me at times, and this pin on John's suit caught my eye, and I had to know what it was. Could it be the Leader Circle pin? I doubted it. So I reached out on Twitter, and with help from a Twitter peep, Queer Thoughts, Rowan replied with this. Oh, would you look at that? People of the Inlet. Okay. Gee, John must really care about Indigenous peoples to put that pin on for a photo shoot. Is that the same John Horgan who tweeted this? Burning down churches is not the way forward. All places of community worship must be protected. It is only by coming together that we can support one another. Vandalism will not move us forward. Respect and understanding will. Let me make something clear. Don't assume anything about how or who started the fires at the churches. Making assumptions will not move us forward, and it shows a lack of respect and understanding. Agent NDN replied to his tweet with, file footage of John Horgan taking a principled stand against vandalism at places of worship, which is the way forward apparently. Thank you, Jagmeet Singh and NDP, for all the silence while your boy does a number on Indigenous peoples and our entire planet. And there's this from Alan Dyer. Weird you didn't seem to care so much about spiritual places when the RCMP invaded a healing center. And there's this tweet. I'm sorry, what? Arresting elders and matriarchs during a ceremony on their lands? Remember this? Because we sure do. But John wears a pin, so he can't be racist. But then there's what's happening at Fairy Creek. This morning, John Horgan and the colonial regime sent 16 RCMP squad cars to harass and arrest Indigenous land defenders and non-Indigenous allies on our front lines. So far, there has been one arrest. We'll keep you updated as things advance. The serfs have a really good video about this linked below. BC is more their territory anyway, and I know I'm trash talking about their province right now, but they're more than welcome to trash talk Ontario. There's lots to work with. Oh, and remember the time this happened? They're just sterilizing the site, John. Yeah, they had snipers aimed at Indigenous land defenders who were ready to go on command. Because, you know, people protecting their land peacefully requires potentially lethal violence. But John is the leader of the NDP, so he can't be all that bad. Right, the Site C Dam, can't forget about that. Is anyone really surprised by this? I remember when John Horgan went on national TV when the BC NDP eventually approved the Site C Dam in 2017 and said, I'm not the first person to stand before you and disappoint Indigenous peoples. He said, what now? Wow, that I did not know. That is horrible. He seems to have a history of lacking sympathy. Yeah, you don't say. You know, it's not too often Canadian issues pop up on Amnesty International's radar. Actually, it's not that uncommon. Outside of the Canadian bubble, we're kind of known for violating human rights. Hey, John. Psst, come here, John. One settler to another. Check your fucking privilege. Indigenous peoples are not some collectible you can put on display to try to look cool. You are in a position to do something about the wrongs that have happened, but not only do you do nothing, you have actively made them worse. You benefited from a system that has allowed an unimpressive person like yourself to succeed to leadership. The luxuries and lifestyle you take for granted has been denied to all Indigenous peoples. By staying leader of the NDP, you are in the way of someone who wants to make real change, and it's holding back progress. No one had to die in the heat wave. It happened because you did nothing. Also, judging by what you give people with disabilities to live on, which is not much more than here in Ontario, I doubt you care that we live in poverty, even though it's the people who live with poverty and disabilities that are the ones most likely to suffer and die in extremes. And since you're the kind of person to tell people to take personal responsibility, you're probably the same kind of persons that tell people on disabilities it's our fault and we need to find a job. You might have noticed by now I'm a little unpredictable and I don't have much of a filter. I have a habit of being bluntly truthful to people's faces, which generally doesn't go over so well with the people I'm forced to work with. If you think someone with my mental health issues is so employable, fine. Hire me to work in your office and I'll show you firsthand how easy it is to work with me, but you're not going to like it. No one wants to work with a person that when they don't show up to work on time, it's a real fear they had a mental break and that this time I went to a place there's no coming back from. As for my qualifications, I'm compassionate, good with the people I choose to be around, have empathy, cares about what happens to others, and I have advanced Excel skills, which makes me far more qualified to do your job than you ever were. Oh, that's like 2 rants in one video. People need to understand, no matter what we do, the extreme weather events will keep happening until a balance is found. If we take drastic measures now, we can minimize the damage and find that balance sooner. During this time, it's the people with the least who will suffer the most. When a home is destroyed, it's the people who can afford insurance who will have a better chance of recovering. The people who can afford to abate the harmful effects of this change will have a better chance of survival. Things as simple as air conditioners, better construction of homes, air filters, the ability to move to safer locations, vehicles, a proper diet to help with their overall health, medication and treatment for environment-related illnesses, and so on. I remember seeing footage of a flood in Peterborough from back in 2004. The city's drainage system was unable to cope with the severe rainfall overnight, which resulted in flooded basements all over the city. Why is this image seared into my mind? Well, most people brushed it off as nothing major. After all, it's just a basement. All I could think about were the low-income people who are forced to live in basement apartments because that's the only option they can afford. They would have lost everything. Being able to choose what floor you rent on can be the difference between losing everything and losing nothing. It's the government's responsibility to provide better infrastructure and see to it everyone hurt by these disasters can rebuild. They have the tools to help more people survive, but they are making the choice not to. They have the ability to fundamentally change how companies operate and implement the steps needed to slow down and hopefully someday reverse the worst of what climate change will bring so that future generations have a chance to live a full life. Instead, because of corporate greed and through use of the media, the government tells us that eventually they'll get around to taking climate change seriously, but for now, we have to accept this as the new normal. No, we don't. We don't have to accept the unacceptable. We don't have to believe the messaging that people living with poverty and people with disabilities deserve what we get and we aren't worth saving. We must not accept it when Justin Trudeau says, all Indigenous communities will have clean drinking water in another 5 years, breaking his previous promise. Drinking water is a right. We have lots of it, and it could be fixed in a few months. As for who's going to pay for it, the fucking government. That's what they're supposed to do. They found $750 billion to bail out banks. They have the money to get clean drinking water to everyone. How many more people have to suffer? How many more need to die before we demand our government works for the people? In the comments section, I'd like to know your thoughts on the following question. What is worse, to live in a conservative province like Ontario with Doug Ford as Premier, who doesn't hide his right-wing values, or in a progressive province like BC with John Horgan as Premier, who is a conservative dressed in orange? Please follow me on Twitter. I'm hot there. Like and share this video widely and on different platforms. I'm not asking you to do my job of promoting me, but you're probably better at it than I am. When I reach 1,000 subscribers to my channel, I'll give live streaming a go. I'd love to be more interactive with you, and you'll be able to see me unscripted, which may be a good thing. I tend to leap first and worry about where I'll land on the way down. Also, I live with mental health issues that make it impossible for me to function in most workplaces. But these videos, this is the job I can do. But the government feels I should live in dire poverty because I'm not the kind of worker they want. I know I try to joke about it, but it's a scary reality for me. Please, if you can, become a Patreon, linked below. Every little bit helps. Salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.